Picture this. You're in traffic. Someone cuts in front of you without signaling. In less than a second, your body reacts. Heat floods your chest, your jaw tightens, and before you even realize it, you're angry. Or imagine this. Your partner or colleague says something dismissive, maybe even cruel. It hits you right in the chest. That flash of fire rises inside you, and your mind races with all the things you could say back. This is anger, and it comes fast. Sometimes so fast that we don't even know we've been captured by it until we're already speaking words we'll later regret. We like to believe we are rational creatures. We trust our reason. We tell ourselves that logic guides our choices. But when anger strikes, reason collapses. The calm voice inside is drowned out by a louder one, demanding retaliation. That is why Marcus Aurelius, a man who commanded armies and ruled the Roman Empire, filled his journal with reminders about anger. For him, it was not a minor irritation to be brushed aside. It was the one force powerful enough to undo even the strongest mind, the one weakness capable of stripping a person of self-mastery. He wrote not to others, but to himself, because he understood how easy it was to fall into anger. If a philosopher-emperor felt its pull, what does that say about us? Ordinary people, navigating traffic, relationships, deadlines, and criticism every day. Anger seduces us by pretending to give strength. It whispers, "They wronged you, now show them your power." Yet Marcus warned that anger doesn't strengthen us, it enslaves us. The one who angers you controls you. He becomes your master in that instant because your peace, your clarity, even your dignity are placed into his hands. Think of how many decisions in life are poisoned by this fire. A careless email sent in rage, a friendship broken over one harsh word, a marriage scarred by shouting that never needed to happen, a career setback caused by words spoken in the heat of the moment. We act as if anger solves something, when in truth, it solves nothing. It only creates wounds we must later tend. And so the question is unavoidable. If Marcus Aurelius were standing in your place today, on the highway, at the office, in the heat of an argument at home, how would he handle anger? Not with suppression, not with indulgence, but with discipline, with understanding, with the unshakable knowledge that anger is never worth the cost of your peace. Most people see anger as something natural, even necessary. We tell ourselves, if I don't get angry, people will walk all over me. Or, my anger shows how much I care. These beliefs are common and they feel convincing in the moment. But the truth is, they are illusions. Stories we repeat to justify losing control. Marcus Aurelius strips them away with clarity. In Meditations, he reminds himself, you shouldn't give circumstances the power to rouse anger, for they don't care at all. The key word here is circumstances. Events themselves carry no anger. A driver cutting in front of you is simply a car moving from one lane to another. A colleague's harsh words are vibrations in the air. A betrayal is an act that has already passed. None of these things arrive carrying fire. The flame begins only when we judge them as personal. When we say, they disrespected me, they should not have done this to me. It is the story we attach that gives birth to anger. This is the first Stoic insight. Anger is never forced upon us. It is not in the insult nor in the action. It lives in our interpretation. And because it lives in interpretation, it is within our power to choose another response. Marcus often reminded himself that people act from ignorance, weakness, or fear. They do not wake each morning with the goal of ruining our peace. They act as they know how, driven by their own limitations. When we understand this, the sharpness of their offense softens. We begin to see that what provoked us was never truly about us. It was about them. Think of the freedom this perspective gives. If anger were a natural, unavoidable reflex, then we would be prisoners of it forever, condemned to lash out whenever life disappointed us. But Marcus shows us that anger is optional, born of judgment, and what is chosen can also be unchosen. Does this mean we should feel nothing when wronged? No. The Stoics did not deny the first impulse. They acknowledged that an initial spark might arise, but they taught that the second stage, the choice to feed that spark into a raging fire, belongs to us. That is where reason can step in. To see this more clearly, consider two scenarios. In the first, you receive a cutting remark from a colleague and immediately lash out. Hours later, you regret the words you cannot take back. In the second, you pause, remind yourself that their insult reflects their character, not your worth, and you move on. The same event, but two radically different outcomes, because of judgment. So the Stoic path begins here, with awareness, by realizing that anger is not an inevitable reflex, but a habit of thought. By seeing that every time we feel anger, we are not helpless victims of events, but authors of a story we ourselves are writing. And if we can write the story, we can also rewrite it. Why does anger rise so quickly and with such force? Marcus Aurelius observed that anger usually has two main roots: expectation and ego. Expectation is the belief that people or life should behave according to our wishes. We think, drivers should follow the rules, colleagues should respect me, life should be fair. But life is not bound to our personal expectations. The Stoics constantly reminded themselves that the world acts according to its own nature, not according to what we think it should be. A rude driver is simply behaving like a rude driver. A dishonest colleague is revealing his character. Life never signed a contract to meet our private standards. The problem is not that reality betrays us, but that we assume reality promised us something in the first place. When the script in our head does not match the scene in front of us, frustration and anger appear. Ego is the second root. Ego whispers, "How dare they treat me this way? Don't they know who I am?" This is pride taking offense. We often justify it by saying our anger is about justice, that we are defending what is right. But if we are honest, much of it is wounded pride. We do not like being ignored, contradicted, or made to feel small. To protect itself, ego disguises its pain as moral outrage. Marcus Aurelius, however, urged himself to look deeper. In Meditations, he wrote that he should go to their souls. This means examining the reasons why people act as they do. An insult usually comes from someone who is insecure or envious. A person who cuts in line does so because he is impatient or undisciplined. A person who lashes out in cruelty is often carrying his own pain. If we can see the weakness or suffering behind the action, the intensity of our anger begins to dissolve. What looked like an attack becomes a display of someone else's flaws and struggles. Marcus also recognized other sources of anger. One is impatience with the nature of things. We want events to go smoothly and efficiently, but the world has its own pace. Delays happen, accidents happen, people make mistakes. To treat these facts as personal offenses is irrational. Being angry at them is no different than being angry at the rain. Another source is comparison. We measure how we are treated against how we think we deserve to be treated. When others fail to meet that standard, we feel resentment. But Marcus reminded himself that our worth is not measured by the behavior of others. If their treatment of us has the power to disturb us, we have already surrendered control over our own peace. A further cause is projection. The faults that irritate us most in others often reflect traits we dislike in ourselves. Arrogance in a colleague may mirror arrogance we refuse to acknowledge in our own hearts. Marcus would advise us to treat anger as a signal. Instead of asking only, "Why are they like this?" he would ask, "Why does this bother me so much? What part of myself is being exposed?" Finally, there is fear. Anger feels strong, but underneath it is often fear. Fear of being disrespected, ignored, diminished, or forgotten. Anger rises to defend our fragile sense of self. Marcus knew that underneath rage lies vulnerability. That is why he reminded himself to question it directly. Is my dignity truly harmed here, or only my pride? When we look closely, anger is not a mysterious power beyond our control. It is the result of predictable causes, unrealistic expectations, wounded ego, impatience with reality, resentment born of comparison, projection of our own flaws, and fear of being less than we wish to appear. Marcus Aurelius examined these causes in himself, not to feel shame, but to loosen their hold. Because if anger is the product of judgment, and judgment is within our power, then anger itself can be restrained. Now let's be brutally honest. What happens if you let anger rule? The first cost is loss of clarity. In the heat of anger, reason collapses. You make decisions you would never make with a calm mind. Words are spoken without thought, actions are taken without foresight. Marcus Aurelius warned himself that anger distorts judgment. It makes small problems appear large, and temporary setbacks seem permanent. The Stoic knows that once reason is lost, freedom is lost too. A leader who cannot control his temper loses the trust of his people. An individual who cannot control his temper loses the ability to guide his own life. The second cost is damage to relationships. Anger spoken aloud rarely lands on the target alone. A sharp word in the household does not just wound the one it is aimed at, it spreads, creating tension that lingers for days. In the workplace, one uncontrolled outburst can shatter trust that took years to build. Marcus understood that an empire could collapse under the weight of leaders who ruled in rage. The same is true for families, friendships, and even our sense of community. Anger isolates because others begin to fear us, avoid us, or mirror our hostility back. The third cost is wasted energy. Anger is exhausting. It drains attention from what matters and consumes hours in replaying conversations or plotting revenge. How many evenings are lost to pointless arguments online? How many nights of sleep are disturbed by replaying what someone said? The Stoics valued time as the most precious resource. To give it away to anger is to give it to nothing. And worse, the more often we indulge in these mental rehearsals of conflict, the less capacity we have left for meaningful work, relationships, or growth. The fourth cost is health of the body and mind. Ancient Stoics saw anger as a sickness of the soul, but modern science shows it harms the body as well. Stress hormones rise, the heart races, blood pressure climbs. Over time, this constant state of agitation erodes health. It weakens the immune system, shortens patience, and accelerates fatigue. Marcus would remind us that to poison the mind is also to poison the body, because both are part of the same whole. The fifth cost is predictability and control by others. When you are easily angered, anyone can steer your behavior. A single insult can provoke you. A small inconvenience can throw off your day. This makes you manipulable. Your freedom is gone because others know exactly which button to press. Marcus Aurelius saw this as a kind of slavery, the opposite of the Stoic goal of inner independence. To remain calm is to remain free. The sixth cost is the habit of anger itself. One outburst makes the next more likely. The more often you give in, the more natural it feels. Over time, anger becomes your default response. You stop noticing how much of your life it consumes. What was once an exception becomes your personality. This is why Marcus treated anger as dangerous, not because it appears once, but because it trains the mind to repeat itself. And finally, the greatest cost, alienation from your own nature. The Stoics taught that human beings are made to live rationally, to cooperate, and to act with justice. When you are ruled by anger, you live against this design. You become less capable of fairness, less open to cooperation, less human in the Stoic sense. Marcus saw anger as a step away from virtue, and therefore as a step away from the life worth living. To lose reason is to step outside your own humanity. So the consequences are clear. Anger destroys clarity, weakens bonds, wastes time, harms health, makes you easy to control, builds destructive habits, and distances you from your own nature. This is not strength, this is self-destruction. That is why Marcus Aurelius did not treat anger as a harmless emotion, but as an enemy to freedom, reason, and virtue. Consider how anger sneaks into ordinary life. At work, a colleague dismisses your idea in front of everyone. The sting is immediate. Your first impulse is to strike back, to humiliate them as they humiliated you. Most people follow that impulse and end up creating conflict that spreads far beyond the moment. Marcus Aurelius would not. He would pause, remind himself that their words reveal more about their character than about his own, and return his attention to the task. The insult, when examined carefully, contains nothing that damages his reason or his virtue. The only danger lies in letting his judgment turn it into harm. By refusing to answer insult with insult, he keeps his freedom and preserves his focus on what matters. He understood that dignity does not depend on the approval of others, but on the steadiness of one's own mind. In family life, anger appears in smaller, more frequent doses. Your child ignores you when you ask for help. Your partner speaks sharply after a long day. A parent criticizes a choice you made years ago. The easy reaction is to snap back, to say something that deepens the wound and sets the house on fire. But Marcus would step back and ask, will this matter tomorrow, in a week, in a year? Most of the time, the answer is no. The harsh word loses weight when placed against the long arc of time. By keeping perspective, he protects the bond instead of feeding hostility. He knew that family is where philosophy must be practiced most, because it is where the temptations to react are constant. If you cannot hold your temper in the smallest circles of life, what hope is there for larger ones? On social media, anger hides behind screens. A stranger insults you, mocks your opinion, or questions your worth. Most people waste an evening typing long replies as if a faceless account deserves their peace of mind. Marcus would smile inwardly and ask, why would I give a stranger power over my mood? To the Stoic, insults from unknown voices are like the barking of a distant dog. Noise, not harm. The insult is real, but its power depends entirely on whether you choose to carry it with you. You can walk past it without being touched, and in that refusal lies your freedom. Even in public spaces, anger lurks. Someone cuts in line, speaks rudely, or blocks the way. Many react as if their dignity depends on winning the moment. Marcus would see it differently. He would remember that such behavior reflects impatience, ignorance, or weakness. To let it disturb him would be to give them victory twice. Once in their action, and again in his response. For the Stoic, the true loss is not the rudeness of the other person, but the loss of inner composure when you let yourself be dragged into their state of mind. These are the everyday battlegrounds of anger. Work, home, the internet, the street. None of them require heroic battles, yet each presents a test of discipline. The cost of failing these small tests is subtle but real. Each time you snap, you surrender a little piece of your peace. Each time you feed anger, you train yourself to expect it until it becomes a habit. And habits, once formed, shape character. Marcus warned himself that character is nothing more than the sum of repeated choices. If you meet daily provocations with temper, you are slowly building a self that is enslaved to it. Marcus Aurelius saw that philosophy is not only for great crises, but also for these ordinary moments. If you cannot control anger in a meeting, at the dinner table, or online, how will you control it in greater trials? The Stoic answer is to use the ordinary as training. Every dismissive word, every rude gesture, every insult is a chance to practice freedom. Each time you refuse to be provoked, you grow stronger, while anger grows weaker. In this way, daily life becomes a gymnasium of the mind, a place where patience, clarity, and calm are trained like muscles. We've seen how anger slips into daily life, at work, at home, Online, even in the smallest encounters, these are the moments where people usually surrender their peace. Marcus Aurelius faced the same provocations, but instead of reacting blindly, he trained himself with specific tools. These tools did not erase difficulty, but they gave him the ability to respond with clarity, not rage. The first tool was control of judgment. Marcus knew we cannot govern external events, only our interpretation of them. An insult is nothing more than words leaving someone else's mouth. A rude gesture is only a movement of another person's body. On their own, they are neutral. They become unbearable only if we decide they are. By refusing to give them that label, Marcus kept them small. This is not self-deception. It is accuracy. To call a sound or a gesture more than it is, that is the real distortion. To see them as they are, without exaggeration, is to remain free. The second tool was to see through the offender. Marcus trained himself not to stop at the surface. He would ask, "Why does this person act this way?" People lash out because they are ignorant, weak, or ruled by pain. A cruel remark reveals more about their inner turmoil than about your worth. To take it personally is to misunderstand the cause. Once you realize this, anger loses its grip. You stop giving strangers control over your state of mind. Their insult is their problem, not yours. A third tool was remembering the brevity of life. Marcus wrote often about time slipping away. Each moment is part of a limited supply. Every hour wasted in rage is gone forever. He asked himself, do you really want to spend what little remains in resentment? Against the backdrop of mortality, most provocations collapse into nothing. The traffic jam, the criticism, the petty insult, all seem small when compared with the fact that life itself is short. Anger is revealed as a poor use of precious time. He also leaned on the idea of shared humanity. To rage at another person, he said, is like the hand striking the body it belongs to. We are part of the same whole. To harm another is to harm yourself, because we are all connected. This does not mean you excuse every wrong, but it changes how you carry it. Instead of multiplying harm by adding anger to it, you protect your stability. You choose not to worsen the injury by wounding yourself. At the center of all these practices was focus on virtue. Marcus returned again and again to the same question: what is truly in my control? His answer was constant: whether I live with justice, wisdom, courage, and self-control. Everything else is noise. Insults and disrespect may sting in the moment, but they cannot touch the core of your character. As long as you remain just and self-disciplined, you have lost nothing essential. This perspective turned every encounter into a test of his own virtue, not a contest against others. With these tools, Marcus Aurelius prevented anger from mastering him. The world still tested him, people still provoked him, but he refused to hand over his freedom. By controlling judgment, by seeing through others, by remembering the brevity of life, by holding to our shared humanity, and by keeping virtue at the center, he stripped anger of its power. And this is the point. These principles are not lofty ideas reserved for an emperor. They are practices available to anyone. The insult, the disrespect, the petty injustice, they still happen today. But if you meet them with these same tools, you remain steady. Anger no longer rules you, you rule yourself. Philosophy without practice is useless. Marcus Aurelius knew this. Words on a page mean nothing if they don't change the way we live. The meditations were not meant as literature. They were reminders, written for himself to be applied in the heat of the moment. So how do we train ourselves today? How do we carry the Stoic tools into the ordinary situations where anger usually wins? The first habit is to pause before reacting. Take a breath. Count slowly to 5. Even the smallest pause creates distance between stimulus and response. Anger thrives on speed. It wants you to strike back immediately before reason has a chance to intervene. By slowing down, even briefly, you break its momentum. That single breath is not weakness, it is control. It is reclaiming the space to choose your response instead of being dragged by impulse. Marcus would remind himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. That short pause is where that power begins. The second habit is reframing the event. Ask yourself, is this truly harmful, or is it only inconvenient to my pride? Most insults, when seen clearly, shrink to their actual size. A colleague's sharp remark does not ruin your career. A stranger's rudeness does not diminish your dignity. What feels like an attack is often nothing more than sound in the air, passing vibrations that we choose to amplify into injury. By separating what is real from what is imagined, anger dissolves. This exercise is not denial, it is clarity. The third exercise is to expect difficulties. Marcus began his mornings with a reminder. Today I will meet the arrogant, the ungrateful, the selfish. He was not being pessimistic. He was training his mind to face reality without shock. By expecting trouble, he robbed it of the power to surprise him. When disrespect appeared, it did not feel like a personal attack. It felt like confirmation of what he already knew, that human beings are flawed and what is expected cannot easily provoke rage. The fourth practice is journaling your anger. At night, Marcus wrote in his meditations. He recorded what triggered him, how he reacted, and how he might improve tomorrow. You can do the same. Write down the moments that caught you off guard. Ask, what judgment did I add that made this sting? What would a calmer response have looked like? Journaling is not about punishing yourself. It is rehearsal, a way of strengthening judgment for the next encounter. Another tool is remembering mortality. When anger rises, whisper to yourself, soon both I and this person will be gone. Against the backdrop of death, insults lose their weight. The man who cut you off in traffic, the woman who spoke harshly, soon they too will vanish. So will you. Nothing burns hot in the face of that truth. Mortality puts every irritation into scale, a passing shadow, not a permanent wound. Finally, we must remember that these exercises are not one-time tricks. They are daily training. Marcus practiced them every day because he knew anger would return every day. No victory is final, but neither is any failure permanent. Each pause, each reframing, each journal entry is one small step in loosening anger's grip. And that is the essence of Stoic practice. Not grand gestures, but steady discipline. Not waiting for peace to appear on its own, but cultivating it through repetition. Slowly, quietly, consistently, anger loses its hold, and freedom, real freedom, takes its place. So how would Marcus Aurelius handle anger if he lived today? He would not explode in rage. He would not bury it deep and let it rot inside. He would pause, reflect, and choose dignity over fury. He would see through the offender's weakness, remember the shortness of life, and protect his peace as his highest possession. His wisdom still speaks across centuries. He wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Those words remind us that true strength is not found in retaliation, but in refusing to let someone else's behavior dictate your own. To mirror their anger is to lose yourself. To remain calm is to remain free. This is the practical core of Stoicism. It is not about suppressing emotion or pretending not to feel. It is about seeing clearly and choosing wisely. The next time anger flares, whether in traffic, at work, at home, or online, take one Stoic step. Pause before reacting, reframe the event and ask, is this truly harmful, or is it only a threat to my pride? Write about it in a journal, and notice how your perspective changes when the heat cools. Or, when words would only make things worse, choose silence and preserve your dignity. These are not trivial gestures. Each time you resist the pull of anger, you take back ownership of yourself. Each time you decline to escalate a conflict, you preserve energy for what truly matters. Marcus knew that anger was a thief. It steals time, clarity, and self-respect. By practicing even the smallest act of control, you prevent that theft. So here is your challenge. Do not wait for some perfect test. When irritation comes, and it will, practice one tool. If you succeed, carry that victory forward. If you stumble, record it, reflect on it, and prepare for tomorrow. The Stoic path is not about perfection, it is about persistence. With repetition, anger loosens its grip, and calm becomes the default. And if you accept this challenge, declare it now. Write in the comments, "I choose peace over anger." That one sentence is not just for others to read, it is for you. It is a declaration that you will not let anger rule you. It is a reminder that peace is a choice available in every moment, no matter the provocation. If this message resonates with you, subscribe and keep walking this path with us. Because Marcus Aurelius' voice is not a relic of history, it is a living guide for today. His reminders about judgment, about virtue, about the fleeting nature of life are not abstract philosophy, they are tools for daily use. In traffic jams, in family arguments, in workplace frustrations, and in the endless noise of the internet. Even whether you turn off the sofa and shut away from the noise, with trust, you can draw an insight. Together we can practice what he lived. Strength through calm, power through self-control, and freedom through discipline. The world does not need more people adding fuel to the fire. It needs people who can extinguish it, quietly, firmly, and with reason. And that can begin with you. The choice is in your hands, just as it was in his.